Okay, do you want to run your best marathon? If you're limited on time, it's not about squeezing in more miles. It's about doing the right things consistently well. There are a few key shifts that can totally transform your next marathon build, and most runners miss them. I'm Lee Grantham, a coach and a professional ultra runner, and I went from not being able to run for 500 meters to being able to complete a marathon in 4 hours and 25, and then improve that to 2 hours and 21 and represent my country at both the marathon and the ultra marathon. For my first couple of years in running, I just equated more equals faster. And so I just wanted to do as much as I possibly could. And I got to a point where I could go full time. Not professional, but I could back myself to go full time because I saw that the full-time job that I was doing was detracting away from me becoming a faster runner. And the funny thing is, when you go full time and you put everything in, you go all in, then you think naturally, I don't have to do 50 hours a week in the office anymore. I'm gonna get incredibly fast because it feels like you have almost an infinite amount of time available to put into getting faster. In reality, what happens, you get injured because you do too much too soon. And you can learn this from other people's mistakes, or you can learn it the hard way. And I learned the hard way through my own mistakes. And luckily, I was obsessed with cycling, watching cycling, and Dave Brailsford at Team Sky at the time. And Brailsford is famous for the 1% gains, the marginal gains. And for me, you can apply that to pretty much any amount of running that you're doing and any amount of time that you've got available in the week to get faster. And the philosophy is very, very simple. It's basically, what are we doing and how can we make that marginally better or a lot better in very much the same way of lean manufacturing and Japanese manufacturing methods. But it also includes thinking outside the box. So one great thing that Brailsford did is he brought in a swim coach to look at how they were cycling at Team Sky in Manchester. And initially that swim coach was just observing for 3 months. One of the things that he said, a very simple thing that Team Sky changed, which absolutely changed the entire game, was why do you guys not warm up before a stage of the Tour de France? And the simple answer was back then, was because we're about to ride for 200 kilometers and you kind of ease into it and therefore, and the swim coach was not just looking at the warm-up in terms of performance for that day, but the recovery benefits and the consistency over the weeks and months. And if you look at an event like the Tour de France, it's basically the best recoverer who wins the race, backed by the best team. And so Team Sky started to warm up on turbo trainers outside the bus, and teams were laughing at them. And within 1 year, because they were so successful, every team was warming up on turbo trainers outside the bus. And we need to apply the same thinking to everything we're doing. And runners are amazing at this. They will just want to do what has worked for them before because it's nice and safe, it's comfortable, and it's proven. So if something has taken you to 2:59 in the past, they want to keep on to that. And hopefully it takes them to 2:57 and maybe 2:56. When in actual fact, I was at a point in my early running career where I felt I was in a rush to be as fast as I possibly could, as quickly as I could. And so I wanted to look at every single facet of running and improve every single area, which of course in turn, once you improve one area, brings up another area. So here are 7 shifts, slight tweaks to what you're already doing that are gonna make you a much faster marathon runner. And no matter what your level, what I'm aiming at from this video is that there's at least 2 to 5 points that you think, oh, I didn't think of that. In exactly the same way that cyclists didn't think of warming up before a stage of a race like the Tour de France. Shift number 1. I always talk about setting yourself up for success, both for the training, for big sessions, and for racing. And if you've been in marathon running long enough, you'll know what the fastest running courses are in the world. And we might talk about Berlin or Valencia, Chicago, and you might think, great, okay, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna run my fastest marathon. But what about if that doesn't work for you? What about if that means a monstrous flight in order to get there and unfamiliar surroundings, just so that you can get to Berlin Marathon that might be a minute or 2 minutes quicker than your local marathon, where you can have somebody on a bike next to you holding your drinks and gels. You sleep in your bed the night before, so everything is familiar. You're cooking in your kitchen and making everything work for you. The course might be a couple of minutes slower, but all those factors really do add up. Just the flight in the legs, together with unfamiliar surroundings, and a new hotel, new sleeping, new bed, etc., can really destroy somebody's marathon, especially at a time when your brain is starting to play tricks on you. Have I done enough? Have I done too much? What about when I missed that training? If everything's familiar, it's so much easier to execute. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying if you want to run your fastest possible marathon, set yourself up for success. So have that as local as possible for you. If that means a 2-hour train journey in order to get to a race where it's stacked full of sub-3 marathon runners, and that's the pace that you want to run, and you want to be surrounded by a group, that makes most sense, and that is setting yourself up for success. Once you've run that fast time, what you'll feel is, oh, I'm freed up now. I've already hit that goal time, and now I can travel around the world and do the majors and the big races that I've always wanted to do and really enjoy the city whilst you're there. Shift number 2. We're trying to condition the body over the weeks and months gradually to be able to run the marathon as fast as we possibly can and the pace that we're aiming for. We want our training to deliver us to the start line fit and then fresh in order to execute. What many marathon runners get into the mindset of doing is, how am I going to be able to run 26 miles or 42k if I can't do 22 miles at marathon pace in training? Or they say, if I'm going to be out there for 3 hours, I want to be out there on my feet for 3 hours in training at a much slower pace. You've got to condition your body, but don't let a lack of confidence in your process derail your performance and get you to the start line fatigued. If you're doing a 22-mile long run 3 weeks out from your marathon in order to prove to yourself that you can run 26 miles, setting yourself up to fail. And it's so sad because you've done all that hard work, and right at the last minute, because there's some doubt there's a lack of confidence, you derail the marathon performance and you actually run your fastest miles in training, your best miles in training. Shift number 3. You want to race and you want to get the experience of racing so that once we get to that marathon, it's second nature. You're not as nervous and anxious because you've gone through the process many times. You know what you're eating before for breakfast. You know what your race day nutrition looks like. You've practiced it in training. You've practiced it in races. It's second nature. What the tendency is with runners, start getting fit throughout the training build. They're the fittest they've ever been. Strava's starting to tell them that they're in great shape. The watch is starting to tell them that they're peaking. And all of a sudden, that half marathon that was really well placed as a specific marathon pace session, they want to run that all out and run a PB. And again, they get to the start line of the big dance, the A race, and they're fatigued because they wanted to go a few seconds quicker in the half marathon that was too close to the marathon. If you race too often, too frequently in the build-up, it's going to stop your momentum. Remember that we're training towards trying to run as fast as we possibly can over the marathon distance on one morning, on one day. So use those intermediate races strategically and be disciplined enough to say, right, okay, today I'm not racing, today I'm not getting competitive. I know that Joe's there and I know that I usually beat him, but today he's gonna beat me because I'm locked in on the big prize. And we've all done it. We get to Wednesday after a Sunday race. It was meant to be disciplined, gone a bit too quick in the end, and all of a sudden that interval session or that easy run still feels sluggish, and it's a week before we can really get back to it. We don't want to break that momentum. Shift number 4. We want to be the most powerful, most robust athlete that we possibly can to get the best possible result in running our race. We want to be consistent over the weeks and months. We don't want any back steps because of little niggles or injuries. Most of us are limited on time. So if you've got 8 hours in the week, you've got your interval session, you've got a 2-hour long run, you get very quickly in the headspace that you want to cram that full of running. When in actual fact, for most people, if they replaced a 40-minute run with a strength session consistently once a week, well timed during the week, it would feed into the rest of their running. especially the faster running, but all of their running, the longer running, and make them more robust as a runner, as an athlete, and more powerful. So you'd see your stride length would increase. And we've got the technology on our arm now with the heart rate monitored in order to track that. So you'd see your stride length increasing. And you'd also be injured less. So if you look at a training block of 13 weeks or 16 weeks or 24 weeks, whatever you're following, or over the years, if you're just injured a lot less, it's going to mean much more forward progress, which is not just more motivating, it translates to a much faster runner. And again, it comes back to, okay, cyclists, we don't warm up because we're going to be riding 200K. If you do things the way that you've always done them and expect different results, then that is the definition of crazy, or the definition of insanity, I think it is. Shift number 5, we've got to get ready to run that marathon. We've got to prepare our body to run that marathon. So if we've got an idea of time in mind, the training is built around that and where we are at the moment. That's super important. And in order to do that, we need to become efficient and used to running over the ground at that pace. It's likely that the marathon is going to be outside on the tarmac, on the road. We've got to get that specificity into our training. A lot of people will train their speed work on the track. It's wrong. And you should train your speed work out there on the surface that you're going to be racing on. And a lot of runners will go fast in an interval session if they've got a structure working for them. And then at the weekend, they'll go very slow. And so when it comes to marathon day, first of all, very difficult to pick what pace to go out at because they're not used to it, which again leads to nervousness and anxiety, that uncertainty. But secondly, they're going to get to a point in the race where the muscles are fatigued, the body's fatigued, because they're just not used to running at marathon pace. So they can go quicker and they can go long, they can go slow, but they've not got that specific marathon pace working for them in training. You want to be at a point within your training where you don't need to look at your watch. You just know you're running at marathon pace. Shift number 6. It's great to get involved with the running club and go out for runs, sessions, long runs, and it keeps you company. Passes the time, miles pass quicker. It feels easier. The perceived effort is usually easier. Often I'll speak to guys and they'll say, I do my Sunday long run with the group or with the club, and we go out there and we run 15, 20 miles. Pace changes from week to week. It depends on who's leading the group. And so what they end up with is the progressions are completely off because it's just a mix up as to what they will get on that day. And they'll get to the group, the 10, 15 runners there, the run will be perfect for 2 or 3 runners, too quick for a lot of them and too slow for a lot of them. And so it's nice and social. You can go for your coffee afterwards and your croissant, but it's not working for you based on where you want to be and where you're at the moment. And I'm not saying to change that completely. I'm saying set yourself up for success by making that run work for you. So if that's something that you really look forward to on a Sunday, then you need to, at a point, get into that group, get into the club run, do a certain amount of time, and then go off and do your own thing, which is specific to your goal. And then you can have the best of both worlds. And when you're not in marathon training or you're not in race training, you can do as many of those as you want. Shift number 7. About 10% of people get this right. And often there will be people who they're getting it right for a reason because it's gone terribly wrong in the past. And you don't need to get this wrong. The information is there for you. I'm about to give it to you. And it can be a strong point instead of an uncertainty or a weak point. When I ask most runners, what has the training been like so far? And then we get onto nutrition, they'll say, I take this type of gel, how many grams of carbohydrates in it, and how often do you take? And they cannot give me an answer the vast majority of the time. And it's usually a vague answer, like every 5 to 7 kilometers or every 3 to 4 miles, I'll take a gel. What size gel? Oh, I don't know, let me go and get it for you and I'll show you. So you're doing all of this training over the years and specifically over the last 3 to 4 months. And when it comes to something that we now know to be so crucial to performance, it's a complete afterthought to the point where it always makes me laugh. And it's the simplest way for you to get better. not just in the race, because if we leave it to the expo to get the gels and then use them the next day, you're gonna get into trouble, and therefore you'll have this relationship with nutrition that don't really like taking gels because I always feel bad in the stomach. Of course you do, because it's unfamiliar and you're probably a bit anxious and nervous, and therefore the stomach's a bit tight. It's not gonna work. You've got to implement that in the training and get it working for you. Not just to learn how to take a gel, how to get it into the stomach, and how to get it working for you as fuel, as energy, but so much more important than that, to get it working for you in the training so that you are reducing the recovery time after a big session, big point. You're restocking the glycogen before it depletes, and you're stopping the muscle breakdown to the extent that it usually would be without the fuel. And you want that nutrition to be optimal for you. And if you give me the excuse, oh, well, gels are pretty expensive and therefore, so let me get this right. You're flying to Berlin, you've got the latest Alpha Flies, you've got the latest Garmin watch, you can't spend £40 on 24 gels or whatever it is. Then at that point, I got to call you out on it and say that you're not serious enough about this in order to really attack it. And it really it doesn't mean that much to you to take 10 or 15 minutes off your marathon time. Once you get that point right and you get it working for you, not just in the race, but in the training, you won't turn back and work a different way. It's just the difference is night and day. Marathon training doesn't need to be complicated, but you can be smart about it. And those points that I've just given you, those are not your marginal gains or your 1% gains. Those are maximal returns. Those are returns that once you stack them on top of each other, that's where you get 10% quicker, where you've not had a breakthrough year for the last 6 years. And if you're ambitious enough and you've got the work ethic and the discipline and you just want the knowledge to be able to run way faster, then please get in contact by booking a call in the description. And if you just want a couple of ways to improve your long runs, then these 2 videos are great.